Motion design is one of the most dynamic and fast growing skills in the creative industry, and it's going to remain that way for a very long time simply because it's so dynamic. It's required in so many diverse creative fields, from UI UX design and product design to advertising and marketing, from graphic design to filmmaking and visual effects, and now more than ever content creation. So if you're just starting out, or you're a graphic designer or illustrator, been a part of the creative industry in a different field, this is the skill that's going to take your career to the next level. So in today's episode, we are going to deep dive into the entire motion design workflow, right from concept development to the final animation. And I'm going to show you exactly how the entire pipeline works, how you with your specific skill can fit in. So what we're going to do is, for the purposes of this video, we're going to look at this simple YouTube intro that I created, and by breaking down each step of this entire process that I went through, you're going to learn how a concept, an idea in your mind can turn into a moving, living, breathing, meaningful and impactful animation at the end. And so without further delay, let's enter the portal. So before we dive in, it's important to understand the purpose of a YouTube intro. An intro is just that, an introduction. It serves as the gateway to your YouTube channel, encapsulating the essence of your content and the main theme of your show. A well-crafted intro not only grabs your attention, but also sets the tone for what your viewers can expect. So in my case, I made this intro animation as my final thesis project for my master's here in Germany, and the topic was called The Art of Listening. So it's about bringing awareness to creators on how they can create more consciously by learning about the power of listening, and also the way the audience listens and experiences media and content that's in different kinds of media. So in essence, this YouTube intro had to capture the depth behind this human capacity of learning. So this backstory is just to give you a larger context within which this intro animation is going to exist. And it's important that you do that for yourself as well, right at the outset. Maybe writing a short paragraph or just a few bullet points, so that before you create the animation intro, you understand what your show and your topic is all about, so that all the important aspects of your show or your YouTube channel is involved in that intro animation. So it almost works like a trailer, also opens a curiosity gap, but at the same time acts as an introduction to your YouTube channel or show. So after understanding a little bit more about the context within which this intro animation is going to live, the very first thing I did was created this roadmap where we begin with idea development, and then we go into visual development, and then design and animation. And this is the flow that we're going to follow in this video as well. And by the way, here's the first resource that I'm going to drop into this video. This is Milanote. So Milanote was made for creatives and for different purposes in the creative industry and the creative field. So you can use this for brainstorming, for concept development, for visual development, for storyboarding, and so on. And just to mention, Milanote didn't pay me to say any of this. This is not a sponsored video, because you can also download and use the free version, and it's made a huge impact in my creative career. So here we've got firstly the idea development. So once I know the main topic, which for me is listening, what I do first is pass that through a very potent brainstorming technique, and it's called word web. And by the way, if you want to learn all about the word web and how you should actually use it to get really good results at the end of it, watch the video that I made where I completely break down the entire process that I take for word webs, and I also mention 4 other very potent brainstorming techniques as well. So make sure to check that out. So once I open this card, you'll see that the word web actually looks a bit like this. You've got your topic in the center, and what we essentially do is we populate the entire screen with associative words that we relate to with the main topic. And this is a very good first step into taking an abstract thought in your mind into something more concrete. And this is so crucial because this is the very foundation on which your animation is going to be built. So the first thing I did was I put down all the most essential words and ideas that came to my mind when I looked at listening. So when you're making this word web, it's not completely random. It's open and explorative, but your previous knowledge of the topic is also going to kind of direct the words that's going to come out into this word web. So I already have here brain and therapeutic. I have attention because I know in the show I want to create a relationship between listening and attention. And of course, I knew that I want to talk about listening in the context of music. I also want to talk about how things hinder us from listening attentively, like information overload, like social media, things that kind of come in the way of us perceiving things with full attention. And the next step where I kind of hone this down even more. So imagine like a funnel, right? The widest part of the funnel is this word web. And then from the word web, I'm going to now slowly hone it down. So I actually have a direction and a deliberate path forward. So the way I do it is that when I have all the words, what I'm going to do is I'm going to shortlist these words into specific aspects that I really want to explore. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go in here in Milanote and go into this color icon here, and I can easily just add a top strip to this card, and that just gives me kind of like a different way of looking at this. So I'm going to just make this maybe green, just to make that stand out. So I know that I want to talk about brain, and I also have neuroscience here, so that kind of relates to each other. So I'm going to choose neuroscience as well. What's very important for me is to also like talk about the creativity aspect, also like how it affects the creative process. I'm also going to add a top strip here, but I'm also going to have it in a different color. And this reminds me, I also want to add another card here called creative process, because I want to also make sure I have some of those words that are a bit more specific. So I'm going to also kind of choose these two words from here. So what I'm doing now is like honing this down into specific topics that I really want to now go into. After this step, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create another column here and just type in all the things that I just selected. So also, something that's happening while I'm doing this process, I'm also thinking of visuals that's coming to me. And I think one clear visual that's coming to me when I look at listening is obviously the humanity part of it, which is also another card that I want to add here. So I want to add humanness here as well. I want to hang everything around that specific aspect of listening. I think this is going to do. So now we are back in this overall workflow, right? And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to quickly add a strip here, and we are now going to go into visual development. I have already prepared the storyboard for the project. So I'm going to jump into the sketch and the storyboard that I created after the concept development. And here we have the storyboard that I built, and I'm going to walk you through it step by step on what was my thought process. And here we've got the short list that we created in the concept development phase. Now I've got these specific words that I can work on. And these words are direct associations that's helping me research and think about what kind of visuals I can think about. But I'm also thinking about how I'm going to build this as a YouTube intro. So I'm going to just add them here. So I've got the main topics. What I'm going to also do is add the pace and rhythm of the animation. Why I did this is because I want these things at the top of my mind when I'm going into the sketch, because I don't want to think about these things later when I'm animating. You're not doing this kind of decision making when you're animating. When you're animating, you should be focused on just the animation. So this stage becomes almost more important. So we've got the concept development results here, and we've got the main elements that create a good intro animation. So what I did was, if you look at the storyboard here, I kept everything centered, and I knew that I'm going to use that to my advantage later when I'm transitioning from these elaborate scenes. So because these designs in itself were quite detailed, that the transitions then should be simple. So coming back to the main keywords that I use, so I've got language here, then I've got information, then I've got social media, because again, this is a very big part of the attention part of it. So we've got the information where we have this hand kind of holding this mobile phone, and there are these exclamation marks all around you. So kind of like an information overload scene. And then we've got a scene where there's this YouTube channel that says subscribe at the top to kind of represent social media. Of course, as we have the next keyword here that's called music, I thought of adding this aspect into the intro as well. And here we've got this lady that's kind of holding a microphone, and we've got the speakers next to each other. We've got a vinyl disc. So I've thought about how to make that music scene interesting, but also still keep it simple. Then finally, I'm bringing it back to the humanness, the creative process part of it. So nature is a part where I'm kind of showing how nature also has so many different kinds of sound that we get to hear, and that activates our listening. And then finally, I've got this last screen where I've kind of shown a human ear. And what I did was I kind of populated the entire sketch here around the ear with all kinds of flying objects and abstract shapes. I also want to represent the creativity part here at the end, because that's also going to be like one of the main themes in the show. So I wanted to bring all that back with the humanness part. So I filled this screen up. Another reason why I filled up this screen was because I kept it very simple before. So now we are coming back to this little point here in this list called pace, rhythm of animation. I was thinking that how do I build up the pace and make a final impact, because also here in the list I've talked about making an impact. So I'm already thinking about this in the sketch phase so that I prepare myself to make that impact when I'm animating these screens. So the reason why I filled up this screen is because I left everything a little bit more empty. So just imagine this visually. You're seeing a certain kind of visual in front of you, so one after the other, and then suddenly it's filled up. The screen just gets filled up, and it's like a big contrast from the earlier screens to this final screen. And then if I just quickly shift back to Photoshop, so I zoom it right in, what I've got here is I've got this screen where we've shown the ear and all these objects, and then right after that I've created this last title screen where I've got the text, so the art of listening, so the final kind of title with the ear in the middle. But you'll see that this whole shot is now again back to empty. We've only got that text and we've got that ear. So that should create an additional amount of impact. And that's exactly what an intro should have. A final ending kind of resolution screen that creates an impact either in a big way or in a subtle way, but it should play that final function of making an impression on the viewer so that you can then move into your YouTube channel and start the episode and so on and so forth. And by the way, I just reached 500 subscribers on this YouTube channel. It's so crazy and unreal that there's so much demand to learn. And I love that about what I do, and I love that about this channel. And just as a gift for reaching 500 subscribers, I'm going to give away this free Asquareportal storyboard template that you can just download and use in your own projects. I'm also going to give you a small write-up on how this template should work. Additionally, also going to add a storyboard template for vertical videos as well, so you can also use that template to create all kinds of content that you wish to. Thank you for your support. Make sure to subscribe the channel if you haven't already, because that is the best and easiest and free way to support the time and attention and devotion that I put to this channel, and it gives me the motivation and inspiration to keep doing more of what I'm doing here. So I've already used a lot of design principles in making these decisions, and we've gone over them very briefly. But if you want to learn more about design principles and how to make conscious, deliberate decisions that make it easy to create compelling and creative designs, then definitely check out my entire graphic design beginners course that I've put completely free onto my YouTube channel. And now that we're done with this sketch and storyboard phase, we're going to jump back into our motion design workflow, and we're going to tag this off as well as completed. And now we're going to go into design. In this step, we turn those draft sketches and storyboards into final designs. And I've already done that beforehand, but I'm going to walk you through all the decisions I made, and you're going to see how it finally turns out. So let's jump right in. And here is the final flow of the designs that I created from the sketches. So here we've got the language and speech scene that we talked about. Then we've got technology. Then we've got social media, music and creation. Then we've got nature, unity, and then title. So let's zoom a little bit into each of those screens, and let me walk you through my thinking process behind that. And for that, I'm going to jump into Photoshop. So now if you remember, this was about language and speech because I wanted to start with that humanness part. So here we've got this extremely simple kind of design where we've got these two mouths that are like talking to each other, and we've got words that are just flying out. I've already kind of reduced the transparency on some of those words because I'm thinking already how this will animate, and I'm connecting that as well with the actual experience that we have when we are talking, like words just appearing and then disappearing. It's very kind of empty-ish, so a lot of action happening in the center like I'd already talked about, but the empty space I've instead filled with this kind of texture so that it creates more interest into the entire visual while keeping still the focus in the middle. And now let's go to the next screen, which was about information. So here we've got just an abstract screen on your mobile phone. The main thing that I really wanted to show was really the mobile phone in the person's hand and these exclamation marks going off to kind of represent information overload. I also wanted to implement a little bit about attention seeking aspects of technology. And I'm already thinking, and I kind of used a little bit more bright colors here to create that contrast on all the kinds of kind of media and things that are displayed onto the screen. And like I said, I wanted to keep it simple. I could go and composite an actual iPhone or a mobile screen on top of that, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted to keep it simple, and I wanted more to emphasize the idea behind the design, the concept behind the design. So always ask yourself when you're designing YouTube intros or any screens about your YouTube intros, um, do I really need this information in my design? Can I take this out so that the main focus still remains the same? And think back again to Steve Jobs' iconic quote, which is less is more, because the lesser you're showing onto the screen, the more attention you're bringing to that thing. The most contrasting thing on this design are those exclamation marks, because that's really what I want to use to create the mood that I want to finally say with the screen, which is the information overload part. So now let's move on to the next screen. So we've got this kind of screen that's representing social media and technology bit and about the internet online landscape that we deal with nowadays. And I really wanted to kind of make that very realistic. So we've got that YouTube interface and we've got subscribe written at the top. These are words and elements that we are now very used to when we're talking about the internet and online world. But I've also added this kind of playful element, which is this mouse pointer that I want to also use in some interesting way to kind of create a transition between the screens. But the mouse pointer is also there to kind of connect us back again to that humanness part. So it's almost like a POV, this screen, because if you have a mouse pointer, you're kind of thinking that, I'm the person who's clicking onto something on the screen. So moving on to the next screen, we've got music, and I also wanted to do something slightly different from what I've done before. So I used vector graphics before, right? In all these other screens, you'll see they are like essentially made up of just simple shapes, which was again in line with the simplicity part of it. But here involved a little bit more of this collage style parts, but still using extremely simple elements. So we've got just this one vinyl disc, and we've got these speakers, we've got this microphone, so all parts of the music world. And then we've got this very famous singer from the past who's kind of in this moment of singing. Again, we've got, of course, all the design principles being used here. So we've got this center aligned composition. We've got these two speakers balancing this whole composition out so that my eyes are like drawn straight into this middle part. Again, using contrasting colors like yellow here and then the purple here and then the black. So all kind of complementing each other, going back to the basics of color. And I've got a dedicated video on color, by the way, on this channel, and I'll tag that above if you're interested. So that was kind of like the thought process behind the design for this screen. And then again, we're going back to the screen for nature. So here we've got just a bunch of plants. So we're not going too detailed, again, just a few different kinds of plants. And we've got these abstract shapes that are like representing like insects and birds that's kind of flying around this little component. Again, keeping it extremely simple, keeping it centered, because again, keep in mind the intro is supposed to be very short, so you can add a lot of detail in your designs, but ask yourself, how long is the viewer going to actually have to really appreciate those details? They're not going to have a lot of time. Again, at the end of the day, it's an intro. It's supposed to be short and sweet. And then we've finally got this last final screen where we've got the iconic ear, again going back to the humanness of it, the art of listening. And we've got all these elements like from before. We've got some connected elements from before, and we've also added these abstract shapes. So I'm kind of filling up the screen, and I'm also kind of leaning a little bit more towards the creativity part. And in this screen, you'll see that I've really added up layers. So you can just simply see the difference between this screen and then this screen, for example. So if I just keep turning them off and on, so you see this screen is like so much more of a contrast from all the other screens, which is what I had decided in the visual development sketching storyboard phase already. And now you can see it in real life completely developed. And then after this screen, I go to this. So if I just turn it on and off again, you'll see the transition that I'm making with the ear. So the ear remains in the same spot, and look at that contrast again. So I'm already thinking in the animation phase, how am I gonna move from this earlier screen into this final one to finally come to this last title screen that gives me the name of the YouTube channel or the show or the topic that you're using, and finally making that kind of impact. And we've got just that ear. So just that human part of it, which is the main theme with the title. So that was always my idea right from the start. And here it is finally in the final design. So now just jumping back to the final flow, here we've got the final flow, and this is what we're going to work with in the final animation stage, and that's what we're going to talk about next. So now after the design and illustration stage, I'm going to go finally one last time back to the entire workflow page, and I'm going to knock the design part off as well. And finally here we have animation. So now I'm going to quickly jump into After Effects where I actually completed the animation. So here we are in After Effects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly, so here we are in After Effects. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly play the final intro animation for you guys so you can see how it turned out. And then I'm going to just explain some of those concepts and my thought process behind the animation. So that was it. That was the intro. And now you see how all those decisions I made before in the concept development phase, in the sketch and storyboard phase, and then in the design phase, how all of those decisions came together finally in the animation. So now let's talk about some main aspects of the animation. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about the transitions. I'm going to break this into two main parts really. And I think those are also like the two main components of any good intro animation, and that's transitions. So how do you move from one scene to another, and finally the rhythm and the pace. So here we've got the lips just kind of zooming in from behind, and these lines just sparking out like they're talking, and you can see like the text is just blinking on and off. Then we've also got the texture here at the back that's also constantly moving, so kind of creating that immersion, that dynamism in the screen. And then what I'm doing is just with this movement, I'm just moving left and then just switching from this movement to this movement. So what's happening is I'm using the scale up of the lips to give a quick shift into this shot. And here we've got the hand where the hand is moving to anticipate the slide action of the finger onto the screen. And we've got these very red, dark exclamation marks coming on and off onto the screen to call that attention, because remember the screen was about information overload. So now notice what I do here. First, the hand anticipates the action. And by the way, if you want to learn more about these animation principles like anticipation, follow through, squash and stretch, which I use throughout this animation, definitely check out the 12 basic animation principles playlist that I created. That's available completely for free on this channel, which will give you a great insight into how animation principles work and how they are implemented in animations to make your final video that much more lifelike. So here, before the hand is swiping on the screen, it's first moving on the opposite direction of the final movement. So it's first moving this way and then sliding onto that way. And with that slide movement, you're gonna see I'm gonna connect this slide to this mouse pointer sliding. So it's almost like the mouse pointer is going with the earlier action. And here is like a match transition. It's called a match cut. And it's happening so fast. Again, going back to the pace and rhythm of things. I want it to keep going. I'm kind of building up to hit that final impact that I want to make at the end for my intro. And then the mouse kind of really go quickly into that computer screen. So with that quick action, I can again kind of switch to the next screen, and with the mouse going inwards, in the next screen, the person's face is coming outwards. So you can see how I'm constantly grabbing your attention and directing your eyes throughout the screen. And there you go. So here we've got a quick flip of the microphone, and we've got this kind of simple mask animation where we've got this vinyl disc just appearing from the back of the lady's head. And then we've got the speakers slam in the middle of the shot, and with that I have this growth animation. So if I just play that back, you'll see the effect that it makes. So here we've got the speakers smashing together, and we've got the flowers bloom out, these birds and insects kind of zoom out. And as it zooms out, I transition to the next screen where everything else in the next screen also zooms out. So again, matching the motion of the earlier screen to the next screen to create that connection and consistency to keep you engaged. And we've got everything scaling up in the next screen, and you're gonna see I've added kind of like a parallax effect, so everything is scaling up in different times. So we've got the green circle scale up slightly before the textured circle, and then at the end we've got the pink circle scale up, and then finally we've got the ear scale up. So again, I'm creating this final build up to this last impact that I'm going to make, and you're going to watch it now. So here I scale everything up because it's so fast. So everything kind of comes towards me, and then I pull everything back in and then just switch into the next screen with the text. We've got the impact, we've got the rhythm and pace locked in, we've got that interest and dynamism, and then finally we've got this last title screen to give you that final lasting impression of the show, and then you can kind of fade into your episode or whatever your show might be. So here we have it again if we watch it back once more. So that's it. That was the entire animation workflow. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm gonna make way more of these kind of project breakdowns. I'm working on a course as well, the basics of After Effects and the basics of motion graphics as well. So definitely subscribe and stay tuned for those videos. Please do also leave a like and a comment, and that allows to bring this learning to more people as well. Now, a quick side note, if some of you are interested in my entire journey to getting a design lead job here in Germany, the resources and the steps that I took to apply for a master's in Germany in the creative field, how I landed a creative job here in the creative industry that finally led to a EU blue card and a great job opportunity. If you're interested in that entire roadmap and you need support with that, then comment down below Creative Job Germany so that I understand how many of you are interested in that topic, and if I have enough responses, then I'll make a full video on that entire topic. And if you have questions, comment them down below or reach out to me directly on Instagram at Asquareportal, and I'll answer you as soon as I can, and I read every single response and comment that I get on the channel. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next episode.